You've been running for a long time. Not from failure, not from pain, not from the things that broke you. You've been running from something quieter, something that never announces itself out loud. It doesn't wake you up with nightmares. It doesn't arrive with a name. It just sits there, in the background of every decision, every comparison, every moment you scroll through someone else's life and feel that hollow thing spreading in your chest. You've been running from the possibility that you might be ordinary. And the worst part? You've never admitted it. Not to anyone, not even to yourself. There's a guy I want you to meet. His name is Rafael. Rafael is 29 years old. He works in marketing at a mid-sized company in São Paulo. He wakes up at 6:15 every morning, makes his coffee, opens LinkedIn before he even brushes his teeth. He has a gym membership he uses 3 times a week. Not 4, not 5, exactly 3. And he tells himself that's enough. He reads self-improvement books on his commute. Not because he loves reading, but because he once read that successful people read 50 books a year, and he has 31 weeks left to catch up. Rafael is not lazy. Rafael is not broken. Rafael is not even unhappy, not in the obvious way. But Rafael has a secret he hasn't said out loud yet. He is terrified. Absolutely terrified of being forgotten. Not in the grand poetic sense. Not in the I want to leave a legacy sense. In the raw, 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling sense. In the what if this is all there is sense. In the what if I work this hard my entire life and still end up as just a name nobody remembers sense. Rafael doesn't call it fear. He calls it ambition. And that's exactly the problem. We live in an era that has made mediocrity into the worst thing a person can be. Not cruel, not dishonest, not cowardly, mediocre. Think about the language we use. Don't be basic. Don't settle. You were made for more. The entire architecture of modern self-improvement is built on a single, unspoken premise, that being average is a kind of failure, that ordinary is a moral flaw, not a statistical reality. Psychologists have a name for this now: koinophobia, the fear of living a life that is unremarkable, the dread that your existence will leave no mark, that you'll be born, move through the world, and disappear without the world noticing you were ever there. But here's what they don't tell you about koinophobia. It doesn't feel like fear. It feels like drive. It feels like ambition. It feels like the thing that separates you from the people who gave up. And that disguise is precisely what makes it so dangerous. I want you to sit with something for a moment. Think about the last time you genuinely rested. Not slept, rested. No phone, no podcast, no list of things you were supposed to be doing instead. Just stopped, just existed, without justification. How long did it take before the discomfort started? For Rafael, it's about 11 minutes. He's timed it. Not literally, but he knows the feeling. That creeping sense that stillness is waste, that every moment he isn't producing something, moving towards something, optimizing something, is a moment being subtracted from the version of himself he's supposed to become. Brené Brown, who has spent decades studying shame and vulnerability, calls it the shame-based fear of being ordinary. Notice the word she chose: shame. Not disappointment, not mild frustration. Shame. Because somewhere along the way, we absorbed the idea that our worth is a performance, that we have to earn the right to exist in a meaningful way, that if we aren't exceptional, we are, on some fundamental level, less. And that idea didn't arrive from nowhere. Nietzsche had a concept he called the herd, the mass of people who move through life by convention, by imitation, by the inherited values of whoever was loudest in their childhood. He wasn't being cruel, he was being diagnostic. He was describing a psychological mechanism, the way human beings outsource their self-definition to external standards and then spend their entire lives trying to meet them. What he observed in the 19th century has become, in the 21st, a full-scale epidemic. Social media didn't invent the fear of being ordinary, but it built a machine that runs on it. Every time you open Instagram, you are not looking at life. You are looking at a curated exhibition of exceptional moments: the promotion, the travel, the body, the love story, the I built this from nothing story. You are seeing the highlight reel of thousands of people simultaneously, and your brain, which evolved to compare itself to a tribe of 150, not a feed of 150 million, registers all of it as evidence about where you stand. And where do you stand? Somewhere in the middle, like almost everyone else, like almost every human being who has ever lived. But the middle doesn't get algorithm traction. The middle doesn't go viral. The middle doesn't make people stop scrolling. So the middle disappears from view, and you're left with the illusion that everyone else is at the edge of something extraordinary. And you're the only one still in the center, still ordinary, still behind. Rafael felt this for the first time when he was 24. A college friend, someone he'd always considered equally talented, equally ambitious, posted about funding a startup. Rafael remembers exactly where he was, standing in the break room at his first job, waiting for the coffee machine. He read the post twice, then a third time, then closed the app, poured his coffee, and went back to his desk. He didn't say anything. He didn't feel anything obvious. But something shifted that afternoon. He started staying later at work, started waking up earlier, started listening to podcasts about productivity at 1.5x speed because somehow even the pace of absorbing information needed to be optimized. He told himself he was motivated. He wasn't, he was scared. There's a difference between doing something because you want to become something and doing something because you're afraid of what you'll see in the mirror if you stop. One is creation, the other is escape. Rafael was escaping, running, working himself into exhaustion, not toward a destination but away from a feeling. And here's the thing, that feeling never got smaller. The more he ran, the more ground it covered. Viktor Frankl, who survived 3 years in Nazi concentration camps, wrote that the deepest human need is not pleasure or power, it is meaning. But Frankl made a distinction that most people skip over when they read him. He said meaning cannot be given to you. It cannot be achieved, earned, or purchased. It can only be found in the way you engage with your actual life, with your actual circumstances, with the actual people in front of you. Not the life you're building toward, not the person you're going to become once you hit the goal. This life, this moment, this unremarkable Tuesday afternoon. The fear of being ordinary, at its core, is the refusal to be present to ordinary life. It is the insistence that meaning only exists at the edges, in the exceptional, the notable, the documented. And that insistence doesn't protect you from emptiness. It guarantees it, because you can spend your entire life sprinting toward the extraordinary and never arrive. Not because you're not good enough, but because the extraordinary was never a place. It was always a feeling you were trying to create by outrunning the present. Before we go further, tudo que você está aprendendo aqui só funciona se você executar. E executar é exatamente onde a maioria para. Criei um sistema chamado Untamed Mind Protocol. 3 ferramentas que trabalham juntas. Um e-book que explica o porquê, um painel interativo que organiza o seu dia e um áudio de reprogramação que age onde o conhecimento não chega. Link na descrição. Agora voltando ao conteúdo. Let me ask you something you probably haven't been asked before. What would it mean for your life if you let go of the need to be remarkable? Not give up, not stop caring, not become passive or small. Let go of the need, the compulsive, anxious, shame-driven need to prove through output that you deserve to be here. Most people can't even sit with that question. They panic at the idea, because the need to be extraordinary has become so fused with their sense of self that removing it feels like removing the self entirely. Who am I if I'm not building something? Who am I if I'm not ahead? Who am I if I stop measuring? Here is the answer that took me a long time to accept. You are the same person you were before you started measuring. The measuring didn't add anything, it only obscured. There's a particular cruelty in the identity trap that exceptionalism builds. When you're young, when you're told you're gifted, special, ahead of the others, it feels like a gift, and it is, for a while. But at some point, it calcifies into a cage, because now you can't fail, can't be uncertain, can't be slow or lost or confused, because the entire story of who you are depends on being the person who doesn't struggle in ordinary ways. And so when the ordinary struggles arrive, and they always arrive, you don't process them, you hide them, you perform your way around them, you work harder, achieve more, post better, present an upgraded version of the self that doesn't let on that inside. Someone is genuinely exhausted from the performance. Rafael started therapy at 27, not because he had a breakdown, because he noticed, almost clinically, that he hadn't felt genuinely happy in almost 2 years. Not unhappy enough to stop, not happy enough to stay, just running. His therapist asked him one question in the 3rd session that he still thinks about. She said, What would you do tomorrow if no one was watching and nothing counted toward anything? He didn't have an answer. He realized, sitting in that office, that he had become so thoroughly organized around the external gaze, around what would count, what would impress, what would distinguish him, that he had completely lost access to what he actually wanted. He wasn't building a life. He was building a resume for an audience that had never asked to see it. Here is what the fear of being ordinary actually protects you from. Not failure, not insignificance. It protects you from intimacy with your own life. Because if you're always looking ahead, always measuring against what you could be, should be, were supposed to be by now, you never have to fully arrive in the life you actually have. You never have to meet your actual self. The self that is uncertain. The self that doesn't have it figured out. The self that wants things that don't look impressive on paper. That self is threatening. Not because it's small, but because it's real. And real things can be seen and measured and found wanting. The performance of exceptionalism is a defense mechanism. Not against failure, against vulnerability, against being known. Schopenhauer, who was one of the most unflinchingly honest thinkers in the history of Western philosophy, argued that most human suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from the relentless activity of the will, the constant striving, wanting, grasping, refusing to be still. He called it the will to live, and he meant it as a diagnosis, not a celebration. What he observed was that the human mind cannot tolerate presence. It is always reaching forward, toward the next thing, the better thing, the thing that will finally feel like enough. Sound familiar? The fear of being ordinary is the will dressed up as ambition. It is the restlessness of a mind that has been trained to believe that stillness is death, that if you stop moving, you will sink, that the only evidence you matter is the distance you keep covering. And the tragedy is that you can cover enormous distance and still feel like you haven't moved at all. Let me tell you what Rafael found on the other side of that question. It took him almost a full minute to answer his therapist, and when he finally did, he was embarrassed by how small it sounded. He said, "I think I'd cook something, maybe read, call my dad. I haven't called my dad in 3 weeks because I keep thinking I'll have more to report when I do." He paused. "I've been waiting to have a life worth reporting before I let myself live it." That sentence broke something open in him, not dramatically. There was no sudden liberation. He didn't walk out of the office transformed, but something became visible that had been invisible for years. He had been treating his actual life as waiting room, as the corridor between here and the remarkable version of himself he was constructing, as a temporary, slightly embarrassing holding pattern before the real story began. And in doing that, he had let years, actual, unrepeatable years, pass by at arm's length. The question isn't whether you want to be exceptional. The question is what you're willing to sacrifice at the altar of that wanting, because the fear of being ordinary has a cost that doesn't announce itself immediately. It doesn't come as a crisis. It comes as a slow erosion of presence, of genuine connection, of the ability to experience your own life as something other than evidence for or against a verdict that hasn't been handed down yet. You stop being a person and become a project. And projects have no feelings about the Tuesday afternoon in November, when the light comes through the window at a certain angle, and there's coffee and nothing pressing and you're alive, and the world is quiet. Projects don't have that. People do. There is something worth saving in the part of you that refuses to be small. I'm not asking you to give that up. I'm asking you to examine what it's doing when you're not watching. The drive to create, to build, to leave something behind, these are not pathological. They become pathological only when they're powered not by genuine desire, but by the terror of what you'll find in yourself if you stop. Nietzsche's Übermensch was not someone who worked themselves into the ground to impress people who weren't looking. It was someone who had faced their own nature honestly, the weakness, the fear, the smallness, and created meaning from that confrontation, rather than running from it. The will to power was not about dominating others. It was about the courage to be what you actually are, fully, without the performance. Which means the first act of genuine strength is not achievement. It's stillness. It's the willingness to stop running long enough to find out what's actually there. Rafael still works hard. He still has ambitions that scare him a little. He still wakes up early and reads and wants things. But something has changed. And the change is not visible from the outside. He called his dad on a Wednesday. No particular reason. Just because he wanted to. Not when he had something to report, just to talk. He cooked that weekend. Something slow and complicated that took 3 hours. He didn't document it. He just made it, and ate it, and felt, for the first time in a long time, like someone inhabiting his own life rather than observing it from a distance. He still checks LinkedIn, but now he notices the feeling, the hollow spread in the chest, and he names it. Not motivation, fear. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being ordinary, and naming it has made it smaller. Not gone, but smaller, which is all you need. You don't need to defeat it. You need to see it clearly enough that it stops disguising itself as something nobler than what it is. Here's what I want to leave you with. The world will not remember most of us. That is not a tragedy. That is arithmetic. There are 8 billion people alive right now, and billions more who came before. The odds that any individual life becomes historically notable are, by definition, vanishingly small. This is not cause for despair, it is cause for liberation. Because if you release the burden of being remembered, you can begin the much more interesting project of actually being alive. The moment that matters is not the one that gets documented. It's the one that happens between documentation, when you're not performing, not measuring, not positioning, when you're just present to the strange, brief, unrepeatable fact of your own existence. You will never be remembered by the world for most of what you do, but you will be remembered intimately and specifically by the people whose lives touched yours, by the conversations you actually showed up for, by the attention you gave that nobody asked you to give, by the love you let yourself feel, without first checking whether it was impressive. That is not ordinary. That is the whole thing. If something in this video landed, if some part of you recognized the running, the waiting room, the performance disguised as ambition, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're someone who got convinced, slowly and thoroughly, that your worth was something to be earned, rather than something you already possess. Unlearning that is the real project, not the career, not the body, not the following. The Untamed Mind community exists for exactly this. For people who are done building resumes for an audience that isn't watching, and ready to start building something that actually belongs to them. If that's where you are, you're already in the right place. Keep going.